It's been almost 8 years since the Syrian conflict began, and the result has been hundreds of thousands of refugees, of displaced people, not to mention the death and the devastation. But we don't hear much about it in the news anymore. So have we forgotten about Syria? Have we given up on Syria? Joining me now to tell us more is Father Nawras Sammour. He's the regional director for Jesuit Refugee Service in the Middle East. Father Nawras, so good to have you back.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Pedro.
It was 4 years now that we last spoke.
My last visit, it was 4 years ago.
4 years ago, and at the time, you might not know all the figures, but at the time I remember there was almost about 200,000 either refugees or displaced Syrians.
No, in terms of refugees and displaced at the time, that was much more.
Much more.
Casualties, it was...
Casualties was 200,000 casualties.
At that time, more than 200,000.
And
even.
now?
Now, the official number is too difficult to say. Some statistics, people which would be able to document the deaths of civilians, it's about 450,000.
Wow.
Now, if we add to that all those who lost their lives, from the regular Syrian armies,
right, so
or from the other sides, and all those who are disappeared, I would say 700,000, 800,000, not too far from 1 million.
This is a country that, what, population 18, 20 million?
23 before the war. So we lost, and 6 million refugees.
6 million refugees.
Mainly 6 million refugees, mainly are in the neighboring countries,
right.
And those who are resettled elsewhere, like here in Canada, for
right.
example.
Yeah.
In Europe, etc.
Yes.
And something like 6.5 to 7 million IDPs, internally displaced people.
And this is something I wanted to ask you about, because even 5 years ago, we didn't speak a lot about internally displaced persons.
Yeah.
But that seems to be a word that is used, or an expression that is used a lot now.
Yeah.
We don't talk about refugees because I guess they're not refugees. They're in the same country, but they're not in their own homes, in their own cities.
Exactly, they are obliged to leave, they are sometimes eradicated from their own places.
From their own towns or their own cities, and they have to go somewhere else.
Exactly.
Are they living, would they be living, some of them with maybe relatives in another cities?
Some of them, but friends? They have to find a way. They have to
figure it out themselves.
They figure out themselves. A lot of them, for example, in the city of Damascus or in Aleppo, they are in under construction buildings.
Right.
I mean, in winter, in summer, they have nothing to protect them except some, just some plastics, tissues around.
Are there refugee camps inside Syria for displaced persons?
No,
right?
No.
So the government would not allow that, or would not provide that.
There's shelters. The government offered shelters.
Okay.
They transformed, for example, some public schools, some public buildings to shelters to those IDPs.
Right.
And till the moment they can, just find out the way just to help them more. Some of them, they pay rent. They got one or two rooms, for a family of 6, 7 members, etc. But it's expensive. I mean, relatively speaking, it's expensive,
I can imagine, and obviously the majority of Syrians are Muslim.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
About 10% are Christian?
Less than 10%.
Less than
now.
10%.
Before the war, we were something like 7%, I would say. There's no clear statistics, official statistics. But we talked about 1.5 million before the war, out of 23 million, so something like 6-7%. Now we talk about only 600,000 out who are in Syria.
Who are still in Syria.
Who are still in Syria.
You would not say that this is a crisis that is only affecting Christians more. It's affecting Syrians, everybody.
Everybody.
Doesn't matter if you're Muslim or Christian or any other ethnic group.
I mean, it's nobody has the monopoly on suffering. I would say. So that now it's the common. If there's something in common among all Syrians today, it's the suffering and the fear and the uncertainty for the future. That's common. Yet the Christians as a minority, when they lost, I would say, 50% of their effective, I mean, they are the weakest link in the social fabric, I would say. I mean, they are not targeting more than the others, as I just said, but they are the weakest link. So the consequences on them, it's much more, I would say, harder than
I can
the
see
others.
that. And I can understand that maybe among the percentage of Christians that have left is probably a greater percentage. Would you say that?
Exactly,
Yes?
exactly. Proportion, in terms of proportion, and especially for the young generation, you know, youth, they live. I mean, we can't afford to lose 30% of our youth like that.
No.
I mean,
No.
there will be no future.
And do you think that I think that most people who have to leave or are forced, are displaced, they think that they will one day be able to return, but after 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, it just becomes harder and harder.
It's harder, but let me just say that as a church, as a JRS, Jesuit Refugee Service, we will do our best for helping people to return back. But in terms of a good return, which is safe return, which is dignified return, so which is you know, voluntary return. So in such condition, the return, it's like, I would say, it's not the beginning, the first step of process of reconciliation. We need to prepare that return, and to prepare it, we need, you know, like just, you know, to prepare an amnesty, we need to prepare a possibility of survival, a livelihood, etc., etc. So it should be prepared. So we'll try to our.
Of course, complicated, but that would be your preference, of course, as a Syrian church, to help people return.
Yeah. I mean, if we could help, we are going to do our best.
Yeah. Now, this whole crisis, how is it affecting the Catholic Church in Syria?
I mean, not more than the Orthodox Church, for example. I mean, as a Christian, we are all affected in the same way. In the same way, let me tell you, for example, Pedro, a very traditional and with a good long tradition of Christianity areas like the northeast of Syria, which is the region of Jazire. I mean, the remaining number of Christians is very, very small, very little. So which is a tradition. It's exactly.
It's border with
so
Iraq.
Qamishli, Hasake, those areas. Unfortunately, I mean, Aleppo as a tradition, long tradition of Christianity, very well known, and as a city which helped a lot for the modernization of the church, you know, I mean, 19th century, 20th century, even before Aleppo, the Church of Aleppo was very much known. And now it's almost, you know, I would say, I'm afraid that we are going to lose this existence there.
Well, I can see why the Jesuits, for example, maybe they're not going to say, we think that Father Nawras needs to leave because you're in danger. They probably feel it's important that you're there. But I know that there are other religious communities, maybe women religious communities, that have decided that it's safer for their sisters to not stay in Syria and Iraq and other places. Have you seen that happening in Syria?
No. What was good, actually, that the church, even in the most difficult moments of the war in Aleppo, which was really, really difficult in 2015, 2016, that was the most difficult time. The church, the bishops, the religious order, they stayed there. Even Aleppo was under siege, I mean, besieged in 2013, and everybody, they said that was good solidarity of the church leaders, of the church clergy, let's say, with the population. That was good. But yet, that was not enough to give hope to people. People are afraid and people are tired. So they decided to leave. And personally, I can't, you know, oblige them to stay.
No, of course not. Of course not.
If they feel themselves they are in danger, and they care about the future of their kids. I don't have kids myself, so I understand it's too important, but I can't feel the same feeling of a parent's mother or a father, you know, about when they care about the kids. So I can't. The only thing I can tell people who think about leaving or staying, I would say, did you think it seriously? Did you take it seriously, that question? If they think seriously, so I have nothing to add.
Do you think that, I mean, you said that nobody is targeting Christians or targeting Muslims, but do you think that some Christians do feel that they are targeted because they are Christian?
In some areas, yes. In some areas, yes. For being frank, I mean, in some areas like Ma'lula, for example, that village, which is very much known for being the village where the community, Muslims and Christians, they talk the language of Christ, the Aramaic.
The Aramaic, yes.
Yeah, the Aramaic. They're the same, according to some specialists and scholars. So, that village, which was in very good cohabitation before the war, I mean, in one day they have
Christians
been,
and Muslims.
and the Christians, they have been attacked by the Muslims, not their neighbors directly, but I mean, you know, they did nothing. They tried in other villages as well, you know. So that was really for nothing. Why? We don't know.
Right.
So those kind of examples. But in other places, no. I mean, I would say they.
So would you say that people would be afraid to maybe go to mass, or to gather as a faith group, or?
Now in Syria, no, at all, no. I mean, that's still, you know, for the big, you know, just feast like, you know, Christmas, like Easter, etc., for the Holy Week.
Right.
Although, you know, it was very dangerous to be in big crowds, you know, in some areas. There were, I mean, people, they came, they show up for that.
Right.
You know.
Well, I guess that's good. That's hopeful. At least people feel that they can still gather. We're going to take a little break, Father. It's not a long break, so don't go too far away. I'm speaking with Father Nawras Sammour. He's the Regional Director for Jesuit Refugee Service. He's Syrian. He lives in Syria. And when we come back, we're going to find out a little bit more about the work of Jesuit Refugee Service. So stay tuned. We're speaking with Father Nawras Sammour. He's the Regional Director of Jesuit Refugee Service. Tell us a little bit about that organization. What is your work, I guess, specifically in the Middle East?
I mean, our region was established with a small project in 2008 for helping the Iraqis after the crisis and the war in Iraq. But with the Syrian crisis, we increased a lot. Usually, JRS it's not an emergency NGO. Rather, it's the day after of a crisis. You know, we are not like the big NGOs of emergency.
Right.
They intervene right away. But in Syria, we were somehow at the very beginning of the war, like one of the rare people able to react for the crisis from the very beginning. And we have grown up. Now, I mean, I would say the most important thing we can do for JRS today, in JRS today for helping Syrians, it's education.
Okay.
So, because we do believe that education is in somehow guarantee of future. And when we do the education, we try to have a global approach. We know, we try to be in touch with the family as a whole. We try to accept the kids for our program education. If the parents, they are not illiterate, I mean, they are illiterate, I mean, we try to give like literacy programs as well. And whatever, I mean, with the youth as well, we try to do something. Whatever activity in our centers we do for education, it's the basis of two things. It's the psychosocial and protection aspect. And the peace building and reconciliation. So it's not by giving, just some knowledge or whatever. No, we try through activities, through not only curriculum, sports, theater,
Right, all
etc.,
kinds
etc.
of-
So we try
yeah.
to develop that.
And you're doing that not just with Christians, but with anyone. Or-
Anyone, the majority even of the people we serve in Syria or elsewhere, in Lebanon, in Jordan, etc., and that's a matter of fact, the majority of the whole of our refugees and displaced, they are,
Yes.
it's Muslim. So,
Yes.
so we try to help everybody.
Right.
So the majority is Muslim.
Yeah, but I can see that in Syria, and I understand that you're the director for the whole region, but in Syria, because you don't have refugees from other countries in Syria, there are no refugee camps per se. So the work that you do with Syrians who are displaced,
Yeah.
or not even displaced,
I mean-
is different than what you would be doing in Lebanon or any other country, Jordan maybe, where there would be refugee camps.
It's different in the sense that we have urban people spread out in the city,
Okay.
and we don't have only let's say one space where the people are. Whereas in Lebanon we have informal camps.
Right.
We are present there. So whereas, for example, a city like Damascus, you have people spread out. You have to visit those people
Yes.
and to know them and to get to know them
Yeah.
well and to invite them for activities,
Yeah.
etc., etc.
Right.
So it's the approach. The goal is the same, but the approach and the way of doing things, it's a little bit different.
Tell me a little bit more about the Jesuits, because I know that, I mean, it's Jesuit Refugee Service. You're also here in Canada, sponsored by the Canadian Jesuits International. Are there a lot of Jesuits in Syria? How big is your community?
We are 9 of us, beside plus the Bishop of Chaldean, who's a Jesuit. So
He's
we
a
are
Jesuit.
10. Yeah, we are 10 all in all.
How does that compare with other congregations?
I mean, almost the same. The Franciscan, they are present there. They are more numbers than more than us. Salesians as well, almost the same number. The Little Brothers of Jesus, Charles de Foucault
Yes,
community,
okay.
the leftover two holy men,
Okay.
So, it's okay.
That's good. That means that there's a lot of other people that you
Yeah,
can work with.
yeah.
That you're not
the
alone.
brothers of Marist in Aleppo, for example, they are there
Yeah.
and as well, and they do a good job. So, church is I would say the engagement of the church in Syria was good.
Good.
I would say, we all of us, we try to do our best and to do something for our people, for
Right.
our society, for our country, and it was okay. It was
Of course.
okay. Now we can hear some critics. Okay, for sure, we are not perfect, so that's normal, and we are not the savior. Well, that is the most important thing. Sometimes it's a big temptation to consider ourselves we are the savior. We are not the
No,
savior.
you're not. There is one Savior.
Exactly.
And it's not a perfect situation. I mean, I was going to ask you about challenges, but I think we know that. I mean, you're in a war zone. Of course, there are challenges. You're here in Canada, I guess, speaking to communities, letting them know about your work. The theme of the tour, if I can call it that, is bridging borders.
Exactly.
Tell me why bridging borders, as opposed to, let's say, building bridges of reconciliation? What borders are we talking about?
The idea came from Canadian Jesuit International for their campaign. It's after the call of the Pope. Pope Francis, who called for all the faithful Christians, Catholics, and all the people of goodwill to stand up for communication and for for reaching out instead of building walls separating people.
Right, of course.
So this is the biggest temptation in our world today. It's that fear of those who are foreigners, who are outsiders, who are strangers, who are not like us.
Right.
Us and the others. This is the problem. So this is the aim, is to connect. I mean, the Bible is built on those encounter with the foreigners. I mean, always a promise was given of tomorrow, of a new tomorrow, thanks to that encounter with the foreigner.
Right.
Remember Abraham with the 3 angels.
Yes. Yeah.
Isaac was the fruit of that encounter.
Welcoming the stranger, yeah.
So
Yeah.
Isaac is the future.
Yes.
And the Samaritan was Jesus.
Yes.
future given to Samaritan thanks to that encounter with the foreigner, because
Yes.
she dared to accept the foreigner and to challenge him even, you know. So welcoming the foreigner and building bridges, and although, we are not naive, it's risky.
Of course.
Because it's much easier to stay in his or her
Of course.
comfort zone,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But still, it's biblical. It's our faith.
That's good to know, because we're not, what's the saying, that we're not created for comfort, we're created
Exactly.
for greatness, and that's difficult.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that the work, that theme, bridging borders, also focuses the work that you might be doing with the people that you serve in Syria or in the region.
Exactly. And not only here in Canada, that the aim of that, it's, just to raise awareness about those, our work in Syria, the other Jesuit work in India, other
Right.
Jesuit work in the Caribbean, so there's a big campaign about that, and the aim, it's always to help that people to understand that, there's something else in our world. Something else, always something else.
Yeah, no, and hope. I guess it gives
Exactly.
us hope too. I'm sure that you have hundreds, if not thousands, of stories of things that you've seen, some things that you maybe you want to forget, other things that offer you hope. Is there any one story that, or someone that you work with, or something that you experience that really gives you hope for the future of Syria?
From the very beginning, I would tell maybe two stories, One about a Christian lady and one about a Muslim lady, you know. In Ramadan 2012, which was July 2012 in Syria, there was the first attack, the big attack on Damascus. There was, attempt to take control of Damascus from some groups. And we got a lot. It was the first time we saw IDPs in the streets. So we went around with our young volunteers, serving those people, giving sandwiches, it was Ramadan for the iftar, etc.
Right, of course.
So a lady, it was a Christian neighborhood in Damascus. A lady, she's a quiet old lady. She came over with some kilos of cucumbers and some kilos of tomatoes. She said, "That's what I can offer, so it would be useful for you." She gave from, I would say, her need.
Cucumbers and tomatoes.
Yeah, and we served hundreds of people at that time. The second story, it's about a Muslim lady. It was in Christmas 2012. We distributed kits for clothing kits for kids. Okay. Something like 1,500 kids.
Yeah.
1,000 family, let's say. And the last day of distribution, the fourth day, we got women with 2 kids, and we give them clothes. And it was the last day. The very next day, just before Christmas, 2 or 3 days before Christmas, the same lady came over with her husband and the kids wearing the new clothes to say thank you, with the cake, handmade cake, to say thank you. And that lady was Muslim.
Wonderful.
So out of 1,000 family, only a Muslim family, something like 600 or 700 Christian family, only that Muslim family came back. You remember the
yes, I was going to
in
say
the
that's
gospel?
also biblical. Yes.
Yeah.
The leper.
So
yes.
It's realistic.
Yeah. No.
So for those people,
yeah, of course.
when you see the kids, they are just keen to learn.
Yeah.
Usually when in good circumstances, a kid wouldn't like to go to school. But in those difficult circumstances, they are keen to learn.
Yeah.
So that gives hope as well.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad. And it's hard for us here sometimes because we rely on what's in the news, and unless we are actively looking and seeking, and there's so many issues everywhere, and people also have to live their lives. So it's important that we don't forget what's happening in other countries. So I'm glad that you come and visit us every once in a while to remind us, because we have not given up on Syria. I know the church has not, the Jesuits have not. Yeah. I know that if I ask you what we can do, you're going to say that we should pray, and we will, and we do. And of course, if people want to help financially, they can
Let me
as well.
tell you something, Pedro. I'm really grateful to the Catholic Church in Canada. I'm not flattering anybody for that solidarity when they supported and sponsored some families from Syria.
Yes.
That was good, great.
Yes.
And that kind of solidarity, it's like, you know, bridging borders. That kind of solidarity is the only, I would say, the only thing we can do for facing that globalized evil, as Pope Francis said as well.
Yeah, solidarity, and that you're right. And solidarity could mean sponsoring a family, but it could mean praying and remembering.
You know, my presence here.
Yeah, not forgetting what other people are going through. So, thank you.
Thank you.
For it's great to see you and great to have you here. Father Nawras Sammour, he's the Regional Director for Jesuit Refugee Service in the Middle East. You heard from him, and now we'd like to hear from you. Do you think that we've given up on Syria? And if not, tell us why. And if you think we have, tell us what you think we should do. But I'm going to tell you, you should go and visit Canadian Jesuits International. It's canadianjesuitsinternational.ca, and there you can find out more about the work that Father Nawras is doing in Syria and in the region, and also the work of Canadian Jesuits International. Thank you for being with us, and may God continue to bless you and your home.